Welcome to Tattooed Freaks in Business Suits, recorded live in the kitchen of the Personal Touch Career Services in Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Donna Shannon. As a professional career coach, I help people navigate the hiring maze to get to the jobs they really love. In addition to working with job seekers one-on-one, I do have a book out there. It's called Get a Job Without Going Crazy. You can find it on Amazon or my website or all kinds of interesting places. So my guest today is Margot Burns, who runs her own leadership coaching and Enneagram company. I'll have her introduce herself in just one moment because she's going to do it so much better than I can. So for those of you who are not aware, our show's purpose is to explore and redefine the world of work, especially as Gen X millennials and those to come after seek positions of leadership that really allow them to be themselves. So every show we explore a topic related to business or job searching. And of course, we're going to talk about tattoos. Our sponsor is the Personal Touch Career Services, Denver's top-rated career coaches. We focus on the practical tools for your job search, including resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job search coaching, and ongoing classes. So check out our ridiculously long website, which is personaltouchcareerservices.com. Once again, that's personaltouchcareerservices.com, or you can just Google it. Hi, Margot.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm really well. Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you very much for joining me. And let's just dive right into things. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm happy to. So I'm Margot Burns. I'm here, located in the Denver, Colorado area, and I'm a leadership coach. I have a background in rehabilitation counseling and have been a business owner, a two-time entrepreneur for the last 30 years, and really found myself in a position of being very successful, high achieving, but out of alignment with my own core values and what I wanted to do in the world. And so I transitioned to a new career and a new way of working. And that is a focus of my leadership coaching. I also am certified and trained in the Enneagram, which I know we're going to talk about later, and use that as a foundation for my coaching and in my own personal and professional development.
Excellent. Excellent. So since you are a leadership coach, what are some of the signs that, you might look for or advise somebody it would be good symptoms basically that they need to get some coaching done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it could be for so many reasons. I mean, a lot of folks are, I do leadership coaching with up and coming leaders. And so those who have really been earmarked for higher ranking positions, who are moving up in the ranks and need the skill set to do that. I also, though, really specialize in working with high achieving women who maybe at the top of their game or on paper, everything looks great. Mm-hmm. They've achieved the job they wanted, they're making good money, and yet something's missing. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've raised their kids and they've just given themselves away, right, to so many others. And now they're really like, well, wait a minute. Now it's my time. I want to focus on myself. And coaching is a great way to do that. So many people come to me for leadership coaching thinking, I want to get to the next phase of my career. I want to get to the next place, or maybe change careers altogether. But I want to piggyback on something you said, that your podcast is about a different way of working in the world. Mm-hmm. It's about, working with what I heard is really working with heart, which is where I come from and I coach from. That is really a trend in today's leadership. And, if you want to be a better leader, you have to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you're not going anywhere. And so that's really what I focus on. If you are a leader, if you are a person who wants coaching, leadership coaching in particular, I will lead you back to yourself, like home to your heart.
That makes sense. It makes sense. So one of the other, what I feel is one of your more unique offerings is you have a thing called habit busting. Can you tell me more about that and why it's important?
Yes. So my habit busting programs are definitely for leaders, but in particular, I have specialized training in working in techniques that help people regulate their nervous system and manage stress. So build more resiliency, lower stress. And people usually come to me because it's a woman who is coping with stress by drinking too much or eating a bunch of crappy food. And so, doing emotional stress eating or just coming home from work and just at the end of your rope and opening a bottle of wine and before you know it, it's gone. Right. So that was my story, for many, many years. I was just pushing through and working and raising kids. And I was so drained. I didn't have any resources. I didn't have good stress management skills. And, a glass or two or three of Chardonnay at the end of the day was usually my way to deal with it. And I quit drinking with the help of a coach. And it was so impactful for me, the changes in my life, that I became trained to do this with other people. So that's part of the habit busting. So it's not so much about, well, let me rephrase that. It's really about finding ways to live life with fulfillment and with heart and without substances, without coping strategies that are unhealthy and self-damaging.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think even when we're looking, whether it's in leadership or something, you're just wanting to get ahead in your career, there's oftentimes this perception that something has to suffer for it. It's like, if we're going to be high achieving in our careers, we're going to put in 60, 70 hours a week. That means we're not going to be as present for our family. Or if we're trying to keep everything pulled together for the family and for our careers, then our self-care is going to suffer. Is that like the habits you're seeing too?
It's exactly what I'm saying. And it's such a, it's such a shame, that women have been given this message and have bought into it, that in order to be successful, we have to give up ourselves. We have to forget ourselves. And it's crap. We don't have to. And in fact, as anybody who's ever, focused on your own self for a while, that I say over and over, self-attention is not selfish. Mm-hmm. Self-attention is not selfish. And when we as women really take care of ourselves and meet our own needs and get enough sleep and, eat, at regularly scheduled times during the day and eat good food and get our exercise if that's what we're into, or meditate or whatever, that we are better for everyone. Mm-hmm. It's an inside job, and it's such a habit to just keep giving ourselves away to other people. And then we're drained and depleted. And from that place, we're not giving our best, we're giving just what we can. And so it's not a sustainable way of being, but so many of us are living that way.
Yeah, it's like kind of reminds me of that old commercial back in the 80s that was, I just remember this thing it's like, I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan.
Yeah.
Clean all the dishes and make you feel like a man. It's
exactly like, right. And who's making me feel like a woman? That's what I want to know, and it's like me. I'm responsible for my own self and my own care. And it's this, idea that it's really empowering to think, okay, I'm going to take care of myself first, and then I'm better for everybody else.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the Enneagram, because you do the Enneagram Empowerment process, right? I know I screwed up.
Enneagram Empowerment Principle is so that's what my leadership and personal and professional development falls under. And what can I tell you about the Enneagram? You and I did a session together.
Right. But there may be some people out there who don't know what the Enneagram is and haven't heard of it. So what exactly is it?
So the Enneagram is a pretty ancient but very incisive psychological, spiritual, and somatic tool for personal and professional development. It's been used in the business place in leadership coaching since the 1970s. It's been taught at the Stanford and Harvard schools of business. But initially, it was used for in contemplative practice. So it was used for people who were really already looking inward and as a way of self-awareness, self-discovery, and self-observation. So a way to regulate your own self. One of my favorite teachers named Russ Hudson, who wrote one of the most well-known books on the Enneagram called The Wisdom of the Enneagram, says, using this kind of tools like catching yourself in the act. So many of us are on autopilot, and that's a very smart survival, technique to just kind of be going through your day and not aware of what you're doing. But once you start to wake up, once you start to catch yourself in the act, you can be aware and you can pause and notice, oh, here I'm doing that pattern again. I'm doing that thing that I do. And there are 9 very distinct ego structures or patterns of behavior that we see in the Enneagram system. So it's a way of understanding yourself almost as if you have an owner's manual, and some people hear about a system like this, and it's often described, and I think wrongly described, as a personality system. Personality is only a part of it. People think, I don't want to be put in a box, but really, it's being on autopilot that's the box.
Right.
Our personality, our survival instincts, our defense mechanism, that's the box. And a system like this is the key out of the box.
Makes sense. So you use this both as a leadership coaching for individuals one-on-one, but also for team development, right?
Yes, I use it in one-on-one coaching as a foundation, just so that when somebody comes to me, this is something I help them identify their Enneagram type. And we work with that as a basis for their self-understanding and as a way that they can start observing their own behavior and catching themselves, and then start to adjust and change their behavior, whether it's their communication style, their, drinking too much, but in leadership, it's often about what is my impact on others? How am I coming across? How is my style of being in the world working for me? And really being aware of that. For teams, it's just take that and multiply it. It's, how is the team communicating with each other? How is the team managing conflict? How are team members giving each other feedback? So if you want an effective team and you want to work together and reduce conflict, you've got to have the skills to give each other feedback, in a way that isn't damaging, right?
Right. So one question with this, with so many teams working by remote, since, as we know, things changed over the past year.
Yeah.
Would you say understanding these team dynamics are even more important because now you don't have the benefit of interacting with each other individually and in person?
Yeah, it definitely changed the dynamic, didn't it? So it, now we can only see people kind of from the, the upper chest up. Most of the time, we're not seeing everybody's body language. But the interesting thing is that, especially if we're one-to-one like this, and we're in speaker view, I can see your face really clearly. And so I'm able to see maybe some features of your face that I might not see across a conference room.
True.
So it goes both ways. But for the most part, this is a less personal way of interacting and communicating than if we're face to face in person.
Right.
And so people had to really adjust the way that they were communicating. Now, interestingly, I've heard from a lot of folks say that when there's a screen between them and the other person, they actually felt more emboldened, that they were more honest or more willing to give tough feedback or have hard conversations because it felt safer.
Right. That makes sense. I actually can see the point of that too, right? It's almost like a protective thing or a protection layer or something like that.
In a way, yeah. That's and it's an interesting way to look at it. Plus, usually people were in their own home, which kind of provides this layer of safety hopefully for most people.
Yeah. So anyways, you did do this for me the other day, a couple of weeks ago or something like that. And I was actually quite impressed with the results because we spoke for you put me through an evaluation, maybe it was 15, 20 minutes. And I thought I ended up pretty accurate.
Yeah. So what is it? I'm curious to know what you noticed between the time that we did this interview and you identified as what's called a type 7, which is the optimist, or sometimes it's called the epicure of the Enneagram. Like, what did you learn?
Well, I mean, definitely seeing all the strengths when it comes into like the brainstorming side of things, the idea generation, getting excited on projects. And, one of the things I pointed out is I do get easily bored, even if it's something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but it was good to hear that I'm not alone in the world and thinking that way.
Yeah. And that's the other beautiful thing about the Enneagram. I'm glad you brought that up, that it's a way of seeing ourselves with a bit of humor, but a lot of compassion. And there again, we come back to that heart piece of, can I go through my life and just be who I am and screw up once in a while and have fun, hopefully lots of the time, but really be authentic and have fun with it, and have a sense of humor about it and have compassion for myself when things don't go exactly as planned or not quite the way that I want them to go.
Right.
So great that you could see that and also be patient and kind with yourself when you noticed those things.
Right. And the other one, too, that was really interesting was the, kind of getting back into like the defense mechanisms. And you're pointing out that it kind of goes with the numbers that are on either side. So like my defense mechanisms coming in as an 8 or like the things that really aggravate and annoy me. One of the things I like to point out is I'm not a micromanager. I don't want to babysit people. It really annoys me when I have to do that. It's like, I just want to tell you to go do something. You go do it. You figure out how you need. If you want advice, I'll be happy to help you and give you the advice, but I'm not going to like dictate everything to you. I'm like, you're an adult. You should be responsible.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, I'm more of like a macro manager is the way I actually refer to it.
Exactly. And we don't have a diagram of the Enneagram in front of us. The numbers are arranged around a circle. And it's actually what you're talking about. I'll just do a gentle correction here. Is called a wing. So you have a wing to 8. And you have, which is right, kind of your next door neighbor on the Enneagram. And you're influenced by that big personality. The defense mechanism of the 7 is called rationalization, which I think we talked about also. This ability to come up very quickly with an excuse, say, or to say, well, this is why I behaved in this way, because you believed that maybe it's something you don't want to look at, and so you believed what you did was okay. And 7s do that quite naturally.
Yeah, it's the benefit of being a brainstormer, right? I can use my powers for good or for evil.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And that's also a great point. One of the things too I love about the Enneagram is that this isn't a system of trying to get rid of habits or behaviors. Well, maybe habits, but things. This is looking honestly at all aspects of us, all sides of us, including our shadow side or our dark side. There are things about all of us that, we'd rather not look at, or that we'd rather not admit we're there, right? And then there are things about us that are fabulous that we want to celebrate. And, so can we hold those in a balance and understand that this is our whole person? This is what really makes us unique and whole and integrated, and not be ashamed that there's parts of us that, don't always work so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just part of being human.
Exactly.
So I got to ask, so where did you fall on the Enneagram?
Oh, that's an interesting story. I'm an Enneagram type 6,
okay.
Which is also a head type. So I'm your other next door neighbor. Mm-hmm. So you would have influence from the type 6 also. And likewise, I have a 7 wing. So I'm quite influenced by the 7. So type 6 is called the loyal skeptic. So I am a person that has all the head types have kind of an underlying hum of anxiety, and there's fear is the driving emotion for the types that are head types, which 6 and 7 are both head types. And so for me, in leadership, for instance, I'm very collaborative. I'm an excellent problem solver. I handle crises very well. And it's because I think about what could go wrong. I plan ahead to handle what might go wrong in a situation. And I'm really good at seeing that. And I don't see it as negative. I see it as a good service. Like somebody has to be level-headed here, right? Somebody has to look at the situation from this practical, realistic way of like, wait a minute, if we put the, I don't know what an example is. Like, we put the stage there, it's blocking an exit and we're not going to be able to get out safely or something. Or, have we thought about this? 6s can be often contrarian, like if somebody in your life who tends to be a devil's advocate or ask a lot of questions or need a lot of reassurance, that could be a 6.
I think my husband is a 6.
Yeah. And
I'll bring up my crazy plans for the business. And, the thing he always asks first and foremost, he's like, well, can you pay the bills?
Yeah. Well, that could be a lot of different types.
But it's free. Don't bring it down with bills. Yeah.
Yeah. And but it shows you how, like in a business setting, for instance, these different viewpoints can both complement and sometimes aggravate each other, and so like how can you all see each other's gifts and use that and honor my gifts, I honor your gifts, and then we also recognize where we don't see eye to eye. It's like learning to speak everybody's language.
Yeah. So you mentioned that these are head types. So what are the other type categories on the Enneagram?
Yep. So there are 3 head types, the 5, 6, 7. There are 3 heart types, the 2, 3, 4. So these are people who, for whom relationship connecting is their focus of attention. They tend to have an image of themselves that helps them feel safe in the world. So, do I look successful? Am I helpful to you? Am I unique? And those are the 3 different types. And then there's 3 body center types, the 8, the 9, and the 1. And those 3 types, their attention goes to control and autonomy. Having things the way they want them. And so they tend to be focused on some kind of action in 3 different ways. And their underlying emotion is anger. And that shows up in 3 different ways. For the heart, I didn't say their underlying emotion is sadness, really, which shows up because they get attached to the image of themselves and lose connection with their heart, with their true self.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part in when you're coaching people on their results is like those underlying emotions sounds like what would typically be seen as negative emotions, fear, anger, and sadness.
Yeah. But they really inform us. They really give us, they can, again, be like a roadmap. If I'm ramped up with anxiety, I can notice that and stop and be like, okay, now what's really going on?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I in a worst case scenario here? Or is everything okay? And I'm just thinking that things are going to go wrong. And that's creating anxiety in my body. If I'm a type 2, for instance, which is called the helper on the Enneagram, am I feeling nervous and am I kind of leaning in toward you because I'm worried about our relationship? I want to keep checking in with you to make sure we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
An 8, for instance, a body type, which is, again, your wing, is going to be concerned with, well, who's got the power and do they deserve it? 8s are concerned with justice and fairness and people taking responsibility for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
So, and then once we have this underlying understanding of ourselves, that's where the whole empowerment comes with this, correct?
Yeah. Well, it is. It's so empowering to really understand yourself, and understand yourself with compassion. I keep coming back to that because the one thing about the system is that it's almost eerily accurate. And as much as we like to think that we're very unique and special, we're pretty predictable. Humans are predictable. We behave in certain ways, we react in certain ways. And the way that the types are described is so accurate. It's a little bit, like I said, eerie. And so the empowerment comes in knowing like, oh, that's just my survival instinct. Oh, that's the fear I've had since I was a little girl. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Mm-hmm. I have the skills to handle this as an adult, and I know what to do now. But it's that reminder, because that little part of us, that part of our brain that is like the primal aspect, it's only thinking about the next 15 seconds. Like, how can I feel safer? How can I feel more comfortable? How can I get out of this situation that I don't like? So this old stuff is going to come up, of course, but how do we handle it now as an adult who knows the skills or has the skills to handle anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So one of the things I did note on your website is that you actually do a lot of service and volunteer work. So do you have a favorite program that you participate in?
I do. I'm highly involved in an organization called the Enneagram Prison Project, and in fact, right now I'm in training to be a guide. So hopefully, starting this fall, I will start teaching the organization's curriculum in state and federal prisons here in Colorado. Nice. And I'm just passionate about this organization, not just because it uses the Enneagram, but because it teaches this compassionate system to some of the most disenfranchised, traumatized individuals that the country knows, and allows these incarcerated individuals to see themselves as human and to see the good in themselves and to understand. And because I think the statistic is 85% or more of them have been horrifically traumatized. Mm. People aren't born to commit murder or to rape or rob or steal or anything. People have things happen to them. And so the curriculum includes not just teaching about the Enneagram, but helping them understand about trauma, about what happened to them, asking not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. Mm-hmm. It helps them understand addiction, and not just addiction to substances, but addiction to our personality. And that's the other really interesting thing that I hadn't looked at before with the Enneagram is, how am I addicted to my way of being? Yeah. So it's just it is right now my number one service, passion, and interest, and I'm devoting quite a bit of time to it lately.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I'm glad you're involved with all that. And that's a great way to look at everything too, is, you know, one thing I definitely believe is that people coming out of the prison system need tools to help them not just like get a job or things along these lines, but the recidivism rate is so high. And I actually did in 2012, I was involved with a project with the state of Colorado teaching people on food stamps better ways to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
This was 2012, so still the recession was hitting. We would see classes of 50 to 70 people, and more than half of them would have felonies, because it's almost impossible to get a job without, when you've got a felony, especially depending on what it is.
Right.
And so people get down on them. They're like, well, if you would just get a job, and you're required to get a job from your parole status and things like this. But all the employers are prejudiced.
Yeah, there's a lot of assumptions about people who have been incarcerated. And, it's a fine line, isn't it? Because the truth is they broke the law. Mm-hmm. They were in prison because they did something and they broke the law and they were incarcerated for it. And they're also human beings. And what we're seeing in this program is this tremendous personal growth and emotional responsibility and ownership for what they did and for how they can move forward in a different way. And the organization teaches the curriculum on the inside, but the mission of the organization is to bring the Enneagram to people all over the world and free people of the prisons of their own making on both sides of the bars. And so we have a reconnecting program. So right now, and actually COVID was a great boost to the reconnecting program, which used to just be in the Bay Area. Now it's online. So people from all over the country who had been incarcerated and learned the program inside can participate in this reconnecting program in their local community from wherever they are once a week. It's free to them, and they get ongoing training in the Enneagram and just their own personal work. So it's it's not, the Enneagram is not the end all be all of life, right? But they're getting the skills. So we're also teaching, for instance, there's somebody who's doing a parenting class. There's somebody who's doing a budgeting and finance class. I'm going to later after my training be doing, because of my background in vocational rehabilitation counseling, some, basic job seeking skills. Maybe you want to help us with that too,
I might.
Yeah. And so, it's an organization that's really caring for people as whole, worthy, and wise individuals.
Yeah. And what I found even in the classes that I was teaching is they would come in very skeptical. And then we would give them some like real answers, because nobody would give them like real answers, right? It would just be glazed over. And then the typical people leading the classes would go to the easy answers, right? But it's even the fact that we just had like 2 or 3 different strategies specifically addressing if you had a felony, here's how you would write about this on a application, here's what you would say in an interview, really stressing the whole taking ownership, like you just said. And
yes,
it's like, yes, I did commit this. Yes, I served this time, but I learned my lesson, and here's what I'm doing to improve my life going forward.
Right, exactly. That ownership is so empowering, right? And it shows a prospective employer, okay, here's somebody who's taking responsibility for what they did. It's not a victim role. It's not like, well, the system and it's true, the system is really a mess, but just coming out and saying, okay, this is where I'm at. This is who I am. This is what happened. This is what I did, but I want a job. Here's what I'm willing to do.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So here we get to one of my favorite parts of the show, where we get to talk about the tattoo of the day. But Margot, you don't have a tattoo, do you?
I don't have a tattoo. I know. I don't know why either, because I'm kind of fascinated with tattoos. I think, I have practiced yoga for many years, which is like a art show of tattoos at most yoga studios, right? And I've just never pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to get a tattoo, what would you get? Mm.
Yeah, you asked me something like that, and I gave this a lot of thought, and I think I've talked so much about heart, on this show, and that's my work lately, is really coming home to my own heart. I don't. I just really resist vulnerability, and but that's part of life. And when I go there and I let someone in to see the real me and my own heart, it's enhanced every relationship I have. And so, and even being able to stay with an emotion that I'm feeling. And so I think it would be something like that. It would be just even the word stay, or, even it sounds so cliche, but just a little heart somewhere that I could see it would be something kind of cool, because that's what leads me back to myself, staying with my heart.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Well, if you ever decide you want to pull the trigger on the tattoo, I have got some excellent resources to
I bet you do.
to point you to here in the Denver metro area. So anyways, we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. So Margot, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, my website is margotburnscoaching.com, and my email is wakeup@margotburnscoaching.com. Those are the best ways to get it. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website. You can schedule a free 30-minute discovery call with me through my website or through my email. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me. And I have spots available for one-on-one coaching, either for the habit busting or for the program I called Reclaim Yourself, which is a 3-month program. Mm-hmm. And in the fall, I'll be doing another group habit busting, which there will be a group focused on people who want to take a dedicated and supported break from alcohol. Mm. And I'm going to do a group this fall for people who struggle with food, who use food as a coping mechanism and really want some concrete, practical, and sustainable strategies for better, more healthy stress management techniques.
Excellent. Sounds very interesting. And are you doing those in person or online?
Those are going to be online, because I have people from all over the country who come to those workshops and classes, and so. Those will be online, but if you're in the Denver metro area and you want to come to my office, then I am now seeing people in person again, or I can do Zoom calls if that's more convenient.
Excellent. So thank you again, Margot, for being part of the show. My name is Donna Shannon. My company is Personal Touch Career Services. And my producer always reminds me, if you liked what you heard here, give us a like, maybe give us a follow. Even you could write a comment. If you didn't like what you heard, just keep it to yourself. The world is mean enough already. We don't need more stuff like that. All right. Thank you, everyone.